the Dream 100 Show. The epicenter of influence, collaboration, and exponential growth. You're about to discover the power of relationships. Dream 100 relationships. And you're one relationship away from a totally different business and life. This is your host, Michael Tesner.
I've got a controversial topic for you today, and that is AI search engine optimization. Unless you've been ignoring everything that's coming out all day, every day, the AI bandwagon is moving at a speed unlike anything I've ever seen. There's new tools coming out, there's new language models, but I would argue that there are a handful of language models that most people are starting to adopt. I just gave a presentation a couple of weeks ago, and I asked one simple question. I said, raise your hand if you have started to move at least some of the questions, some of the searches that you would put into Google and have started to do those in ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Grok, one of those tools. And at the type of conference that this was, I expected to maybe see 20% of hands. I saw almost 90%. So if you just start to think about that and you just start to unpack that, it starts to quickly show that A, people are moving away from Google and that Google's in trouble. If we know that the lion's share of their revenue is coming from ads that are being placed in search and kind of Google guaranteed / Google local and all things Google. And if people are now quickly moving to not just the Gemini tool, but all the other language models and starting to use those as more of their search engine, as more of their companion, and we're going to come back to that word. If we see that and we know that that's happening, what does that mean for you? What does that mean for you, the business owner, you, the marketer? It means that as the attention is flowing to other places, we need to get ahead of it. Now, there are two completely different schools of thought, and I don't want to make this highly technical, but what I want to share with you today are some of the strategies that I've been testing the last 6 months, and more importantly, testing and then proving true. Are there ways to get found in these language models quicker? Are there certain websites or certain tactics and strategies? And if you haven't understood by now, I like to bring you all the latest and greatest things that are taking place, things that are going on. So the first thing that I want to dispel is that it's not simply enough to just do normal and proper search engine optimization on your website. Is that helpful? 100%. Having a website with a lot of great content, a website that loads quickly, it looks good on all different devices, that's extremely important. And yes, that will help contribute. But there are a lot of other factors and other ways that you can kind of get into these language models a little bit quicker. And what's been interesting is that I've been running query after query after query to start to see, is my client being found for X particular phrase? So one of the ones that I searched before was, what was the exact phrase? What is the best sushi restaurant in Buffalo, New York? It was interesting because I used the word best, so I would think that would go off of Google reviews only, but it pulled in and looked at a lot of different factors and it gave me some recommendations. And some of the places that had the most reviews or the ones that I thought it would recommend didn't even come up. So just doing that normal search, again, it's just not enough. And if your marketing agency or even yourself, you're like, well, I'm just going to continue doing the search engine stuff that I've been doing. Well, if you've been focusing on optimizing for Google only, and you know that the search trend is moving towards all these other language models, we need, again, to get ahead of that curve. So what are some of the things that you can do immediately to start to improve your chances? And the interesting thing that we have found is that different platforms favor different places of where they're getting information. So the first thing, and the easiest one that you can do, is actually to focus on your reviews. So most of the language models, so again, Grok and ChatGPT and Claude and all these different ones, they are looking at and establishing some kind of trust metric. And one of the best ways that they're knowing that you're a trustworthy business is based off of your reviews. So if you have a local address, so you're in like that, you've got a Google business profile, you want to make sure that you have up-to-date reviews, your review count is increasing, and you've got good reviews. If you're at a 2.5 star out of 5, for example, that's going to weigh pretty negatively in influencing the language models to show your particular business. If you don't have a physical brick and mortar and you're a web-based business, they're able to still look at reviews on the website, testimonials, case studies. Content, it has always been king when it comes to search engine optimization. But what we've been finding to get into these, again, these AI language models a little bit quicker and with better results is when you're putting out content to actually be referencing kind of other places. So think kind of back to your college days when you had to add references and you have to say, hey, I'm citing, the citation is the better word, citing this, I'm citing Wikipedia, I'm citing Harvard Business. You're citing a particular place inside of that blog post. Like, they like to actually look at things that have a little bit more of an academic tone to it. And citations and references are one. Another one is actually putting charts, graphs, putting that kind of stuff into your blog post. So one of the industries that I refer to on a regular basis is landscaping. It's just, I like to use ones that are kind of a little bit generic, and you could lump that into home services, and there's lots of home service businesses. You might say, well, what is a landscaper going to publish that has like charts and graphs? Well, you could publish something about watering your lawn, and here are the effects of underwatering or overwatering, and you can show some images, you can show certain graphs and charts of how much water to be using. You can have charts and graphs of different plants, different grass types. You can have a whole article about all the crazy weeds that you might find, and then referencing those different things. So it's not only just putting out good content, but then again, taking the good content and taking it to a whole nother level with different references. Things that normally you wouldn't have had to have done in the past, but these things are then starting to trigger some of the places to say, yeah, great, we want to favor this article because they've got some fancier graphs and charts. They've got a couple of references to places that are very, very interesting. The next thing that I realized after a lot of testing was that Reddit is actually a great signal. Gemini actually pulls a lot of great content from Reddit. You can even create your own subreddit that has your business name, and you start to publish content there. I never would have thought that AI would be looking at Reddit and actually favoring it, but we found in our testing that Gemini loves content from Reddit. On the other hand, Grok loves content from Quora. So if there are questions that you can answer, and there's always questions, and a great book, they ask you answer, looking through all the questions that people are asking you. What are the things that come up day after day after day? You can build those out on Quora, answer the questions, and have your business associated with it. And then you're going to magically find that Grok is now starting to favor your content. So starting to think a little bit more outside the box. If we go back to the content side of things, you can be, again, taking content that's already been sourced and just making it better and adding those citations and references. You can rework content, again, that's already on your website, but you just kind of beef it up a little bit. You make the content better, you add some more references, you add some graphics and some charts, that just amplifies it for the way that these AI engines are pulling and kind of prioritizing content. They're not simply prioritizing who has the best optimized website for Google. They're using all these different factors. One of my favorite factors, and one of the most underutilized, is actually submitting press releases. Now, press releases that are getting indexed and they're actually getting picked up. Now, to submit a press release, you need something that's a little bit newsy, but that could be announcing a new team member, a rebrand, a new website, a new product, a new service, a feature. You need something that's newsy, but actually submitting those on a regular basis, those get found quickly. They do help from a regular search standpoint, but they're also serving as a great ranking indicator for these different AI models. So those are some of my favorite. Those are some of the easiest ones to do. Enhance your blog content, your website content with more references, charts, graphics. Start posting on Reddit, building out your own subreddit, getting content on there, getting active on Quora, and actually answering questions. Now, if you want to then continue to take things to another level, there's something called the kind of index crawl, the common crawl, and you can actually go and see, are you indexed or not? And that is where almost all the language models are pulling from. So once you get into that, it's a lot easier for your website to be getting picked up. And they're pulling from things like the BBC, they're pulling from Harvard Business, they're pulling from Wikipedia, they're pulling from Project Gutenberg. So they're pulling from, again, things that I would deem kind of more academia. And it's been interesting because if you start to look at that, you say, well, the content that they typically kick back on these language models isn't kind of overly academic, but they're using those as the trust factors. They're using, again, Reddit and Quora as trust factors. They're looking at the press release aspect. They're looking at your reviews as another trust factor. They're looking at TechCrunch. That's another website that we're seeing amazing results with. So you need to do a little bit of an audit of, are you in these places? So I would go through and I would look at some of the top things that people are going to ask. So if you were a landscaper, who are the best landscapers in Buffalo? How much does landscaping in Buffalo cost? Like, what are the questions that your potential customers are going to be searching that they're already searching for? And then test going into ChatGPT, Grok, Gemini, Claude, Perplexity, leveraging the different tools to see, are you stacking up? Now make sure that you're using fresh accounts so that it doesn't already know like who you are and have your business information. But you want to do kind of new conversations within these tools. And you'll start to see, are you there or not? And that will start to show how much work do you actually have to do. You can also visit index.commoncrawl.org. And then again, finally, you can visit the index.commoncrawl.org and you can see, are you showing up there or not? That's one of the key places. And if you're not, that's again when you want to make sure that you have all of these things tied up in a bow and you've got the great reviews and you've got the great content. That will then start to get you into that particular index so that you are in the large language models. This is not something that can be taken lightly. And I, for some reason, feel like a lot of businesses are just, they're not ignoring it, but they're, no, we'll just continue to practice good SEO. But if you know that data and testing has shown that certain things can positively impact your results within these engines, why would you not want to do it? Why wouldn't you not want to get ahead of the curve? I know today was largely technical and not the sexiest of topics, but I wanted to bring you up to the minute data, tactics, testing that I am doing to allow you to get ahead of that curve. Michael Zasner signing off. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. I'll see you next week.